You know, they give you phony polls, folks, phony polls. I don't believe the polls anymore. These polls, these are called dirty polls. You know what that is? These are false. I don't think so. I don't believe those polls, by the way, because both of those pollsters do not like me, I'm telling you. Now, I'm not saying anything that goes on illicitly with polling. Okay? I would never, ever say that.
According to reporting from the New Republic, polling data that showed Trump and Biden equally matched and favored in the eyes of the American public was bought and paid for by the Trump campaign.
We do have new polling from the Wall Street Journal that has President Joe Biden and Donald Trump in a dead heat in a 2024 general election matchup. In the survey, 46% say they would vote for Biden, while 46% say they would vote for Trump. 8% say they are undecided. So in this conversation, mixing this in really shows you where the country's at, Joe.
Well,
and it's
Gene, I mean,
Trumpified.
This allegedly falsified or at least tampered with data was published by the Wall Street Journal and reported on by several mainstream media outlets. The polls show that most voters think Joe Biden is too old to serve a second term as president, and that Trump and Biden are neck and neck for a rematch in 2024. One of Trump's former 2016 campaign pollsters, Tony Fabrizio, was involved in the poll, and he currently works for a Trump super PAC. Since the beginning of this year, Make America Great Again, Inc. has paid Fabrizio over $500,000. Fabrizio also has ties to Russia by way of Paul Manafort, who, if you'll recall, was found to be passing election polling data to a Russian oligarch. The firm Fabrizio works for, Fabrizio, Lee and Associates, has received over $11 million from right-wing candidates over the past 2 election cycles, with nearly half of that amount, over $5 million, coming from Trump PACs alone. Now, this isn't the first time this has happened. In 2019, the former fixer for the former president, Michael Cohen, confirmed that he was involved in a scheme to rig polls in Trump's favor going all the way back to 2014.
According to the Wall Street Journal, Cohen paid a digital firm roughly $13,000 in cash, delivered in a Walmart bag, to try to help rig online polls to help boost Trump's popularity before the launch of his presidential campaign. And after the story came out, Michael Cohen confirmed the reporting by tweeting, "What I did was at the direction of and for the sole benefit of Donald Trump. I truly regret my blind loyalty to a man who doesn't deserve it."
Ironically, that story was first reported on by the Wall Street Journal, the same outlet currently at fault for publishing the rigged polling data. Now, I always wonder whether or not people actually trust polling data, but once the poll becomes a headline, it's hard to ignore the narrative that is created around it. This is something that politicians, including Trump, very much understand, which is exactly what's being demonstrated with these allegations of poll tampering. Prior to 2016, Trump needed to be seen as a viable presidential candidate despite having no experience working in politics or even in public service. Now, in 2023, Trump wants to be seen as a viable threat to Biden, so he's emphasizing Biden's age, and I feel like I have to say this every time this comes up, but Biden is only 3 years older than Trump, and Trump is positioning himself as a stronger candidate than he might actually be. On top of that, Trump tends to lay groundwork for when things inevitably don't go his way. During the 2020 election, he talked about how unreliable mail-in voting was, and he talked extensively about the possibility of the Democrats rigging the election without providing any proof that they had ever done so or were planning on doing so. He even said that if he loses the 2020 election, it will be because the Democrats cheated. He completely ignored the possibility that he just wasn't the more popular or electable candidate, and in so doing, his supporters also ignored those possibilities. When he did lose the election, his supporters saw him as a prophet who foresaw the whole thing and warned everyone that this is what was going to happen. Now, if he loses in 2024, he can point to polling data that showed him evenly tied with Biden. And if the election results are skewed more towards Biden than towards Trump, he can point to the polling results and he can claim fraud. This is also a really good fundraising ploy for him. If his supporters see him within striking distance of the presidency, they will donate money to push him over that edge. If they see him too far behind, it might be a lost cause, and if they see him too far ahead, there's less urgency to donate. But while this is a significant headline on its own, is it unheard of? Polls are notoriously unreliable to begin with. If you have a point that you want to prove, you can probably find a way to conduct a poll that would confirm that point. If you've ever taken a stats course, you know how many parameters need to be in place and how many separate variables and even potential variables need to be considered when you're conceptualizing, conducting, reporting, and analyzing a poll. Even if the poll is conducted in the most ethical way, in a way that is actually reflective of the population it's examining, we all know that numbers can be manipulated and presented in ways that, with a quick glance, they can seem to tell a different story from the reality. However, the fact that Trump and his team are doing this intentionally and paying millions of dollars to do so is a problem in terms of political discourse and public opinion, and if you want to go so far, an argument I'm sure can be made for propaganda. It's tapping into groupthink and it's exploiting confirmation biases. So let's say you have a hill, and the hill represents voter preference leading up to an election, and on the other side of the hill, that is the presidency. Now, it's much easier to get to the other side of the hill if you're already starting from the top. And this polling data, what it does is it puts Trump at the top of that hill, when in reality, he's still probably climbing up the side somewhere. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like and subscribe to the channel and be sure to follow me on all the socials. And if you haven't already, please check out my new podcast, Modern Context. I've got 2 episodes out for you to hopefully enjoy. Thank you.